Hi everyone, this is Scott and Nate here. Give you a tutorial on how to use the Master Schedule spreadsheet. First of all, I'm going to go over kind of how this developed and how I use it, and then we'll go over actually starting a new one to hopefully help you out with getting started for your trip this year. So I'm starting on this second tab, the roster itemized. And if I can draw your attention to the left side of the screen where I have the different colors and the different committees set up, this is the part where you need to start. So you can see if you follow the cursor here, I have my cultural committee. I've actually used some formatting to highlight which one is the mentor, the alum leaders, and then the students. And you can see that for each one of the committees. If you notice at the bottom, I had a special committee, the library committee in Peru a couple of years ago. But you can customize this to the committees that you have. That shouldn't really matter. So how I use this is I set everyone up in their committees, and then off of that I start to build the master schedule. The stuff to the right of the committees I'll come back to in a minute, so you can ignore that for now. So now I'm going to go over to the master schedule, and here you can see where I have each of the days set up, a morning and an afternoon, and then the number of people that I have to schedule. So in this case I had 38 people to schedule. And then this is where you'll build your specific schedule based on the number of people you need for each project. So for example, you can see I needed 10 people for education in this morning session, 6 for vocational, 6 for business, 4 were on the mural, and the rest on construction. So I set those up initially, and then for example, as I would go through and fill out the schedule for the people that were assigned, I would go back to the itemized roster tab and then just do a simple copy and paste of the person's name from here, go back to the master schedule and paste it in the column there. I would then fill out the rest of the day with all the names and the assignments that I have specified for that day, at least for Tuesday morning. I would then move on to do the PM or however you want to, fill in your days. The reason I have these color coded with the names is to just help me visually determine that I have people from the committees where they need to be. For example, on the vocational committee, I always wanted to make sure I had either the mentor or one of the alum leaders there for the sewing class, so I can just quickly look across, and every time I have the vocational, so for example, you can see I had the entire vocational committee on Tuesday, I had 2 on Wednesday, 3 on Thursday, etc. Then I can just quickly look across there and make sure that every day I had someone from the vocational committee assigned to vocational because the colors match. And the same thing with education. You can see I always had the captain with someone from the education committee. So that's how I use the colors to help me visually determine that I've got the right people where they need to be. Okay, so next, once these names are filled in, the way we have the spreadsheet built is that it will populate under the roster itemized tab which committee they were assigned to on which day. So for example, on Tuesday the 11th under AM, you can see that Abby was assigned to be on education, and then in the afternoon she was assigned for construction, and then Wednesday morning education, and then in the afternoon for library. So we'll show you in a minute where these are pulled from, but I wanted to explain to you why I use this. So what this gives me the chance to do is if I scroll over here, you can see I have each one of the either committees or the different projects across the top with a column. So for example, because we were in Peru, we needed translators, so I added a translator column so that I could see who was assigned to be a translator, as well as be on during the time they were teaching, the number of times they did construction, the number of times they did vocational, etc. So these numbers are pulled automatically from this entire row under, so for example, if we go back up to Abby again to use the person I was using before, you can see she participated with education twice, construction 3 times, cultural 3 times, business once, mural 3 times, and library twice, for a total of 14. So this way I can look and see if I have assigned someone way too many times, say for construction, and I have not assigned them for education. So I know that they have not been scheduled to teach their lesson. I need to go back and fix that. And then on this far right hand column, you see because we have 14 different shifts that they would be assigned to, now I can go down and look at this list and make sure that everyone is on the schedule the appropriate number of times. So that's how I use this tab. It just makes it nice for scheduling to make sure everything's evened out. As you know, things get crazy and it doesn't always work out the way you plan it, but this gives you a good start to try and make sure everyone gets to participate in all of the different projects, or at least as many as possible. You can see here, for example, cultural and mural are both in gray. Those are both the cultural committee. I wanted to make sure that everyone had a chance to work on the mural, as well as, in this case for cultural, was participating in home visits. So that's why there's more columns here than there are committees. So that's a brief explanation of how I use it and the purposes for using it. And you can see from if I go back to the master schedule, you can see where each day's been filled out, and to the right of it, if I show you here, it shows the ED, everyone here, translator, TR. You can see the vocational. Those are the abbreviations that are populated over here in these cells. And Nate will explain how that all works as we describe the functioning of this spreadsheet. So I hope that makes sense.
All right, as Scott mentioned, we're going to talk about now creating a team master schedule from blank. So this is a template that's been mailed out to all of you. It's set up for 40 team members. If you're less than 40 team members, you can come in here, you can click on a row and delete a column if you're less than 40, and everything will still function correctly. However, if you need to add team members, so if you need to go to 41, 42, etc., please let Scott or I know. We will need to create one customized to that team size. It's easy to delete a row, but it doesn't function. The formulas break and we start running into issues if you're adding more than 40. We can do it. It just requires us to go through and look at the formulas and make sure everything is pulling correctly. So if you're in that boat, please let us know and we can go ahead and get that fixed for you. So what I've done, the first place to start is over here on this roster, itemized, which I've gone ahead and I've copied the data in for a team. This is a 40-person team, so we don't need to delete anything. We're good to go. So I've gone ahead, copied the data from Google Drive into here. And now if we go back over to this master schedule, each of these white cells are our what we call data validation, which means it's checking that list over there for names. So it won't allow you to misspell a name, anything of that such. And we do that because we need it to be an exact match for the formulas to work. So for example, my name is in here. If I go ahead and type Nate, it doesn't matter capitalization, no issues. I can also come in here, click on the drop down, select Nate, that works as well. But if I spell it wrong, for whatever reason, it'll come up with a warning saying you can't do it. It won't let you leave a cell that way. You have to fix it. So it'll go back to whatever you've typed and you can try it again. So that's good. So what we're going to do is off camera, I'm going to go ahead and fill out an entire day worth of information, and then we will go from there. All right, so now I've gone ahead and entered the data for one day, and the first thing you're going to want to do after you've done this is make sure that you've assigned everyone to their locations for the day. And the best way to do that is come over to this rostered itemized tab, and you'll notice here at the very top Abby C. And when you see Abby C, that's because there's two Abby's, and you need to make sure if you have someone with the same first name that there is some differentiating factor, whether that be a last initial or if it's spelt differently, that will work as well. The Abby C has only been assigned to one thing on that first day. One of the flaws of this, or limitations, is that it will not tell us if someone's been assigned multiple times. So in this case, we're going to need to go find who's been assigned a second time. So if we start scanning down the list, we'll notice Ethan has been assigned twice here. So I'm going to go ahead and change this one to Abby C. And now if we go back to the roster itemized, you'll notice now everyone is up to 2 spots on there. So that's the process you'll kind of go through for each different day. If you notice how Scott was talking about how he color coordinates these cells based off what committee people are on, that is something you can do. And if I were to do that, my recommendation would be to copy the value from this roster, and it will allow you. So for example, I can copy Sophie here over into one of these cells where she is, and it will allow that to work without a problem. But you will have to bring that formatting over separately. Also, if you need to change any of these cells, for example, you don't need as many educational, you can just copy vocational up to there, and everything will make its change as it's supposed to. Again, you just don't want to be adding or deleting any rows, but you can make changes here to this column, you can make changes to this column. Anything in dark gray or black, you do not want to change, as those are driving the formulas. Also, if you notice, as we get over here to Sunday, we've changed the color in this cell, or in these cells, but these cells are formatted to function. So depending on what day is your first day, and usually Sundays or some sort of rest day, or you're not going to be making these individual assignments out. For example, if this Saturday is actually your Sunday, due to the timing, you can change this to look like this with just formatting, delete out all the committees, and you can turn this into the committees. For example, I could come over here, copy this in, and everything would start working just fine. So that's how that works. Over on this roster itemized, there's a couple cells we just want to call your attention to not changing. Any cells in this area here, from this point over, you do not want to manually type anything into, as it will override the formula. You can go ahead and change these days up along the top. That's not an issue. And if you need to change, for example, you have a translator that you're going to be assigning, you can make that change. And how you do that is you come up here, and you do insert, and we're going to type in translator, and you'll drag this formula if you're familiar with that, and you come and you'll highlight all of these, and you'll drag like that. And now if we come back over to the master schedule and I change one of these individuals to Slator, oh sorry, let me do it on one where we have a name, translator, and we come back over here, we now notice there's a translator filled in here for that one day. And you can make those changes as you need. If you have any questions, we're more than happy to help with those unique circumstances per team.